Hello and welcome to the chemistry of mummies. Before there were mummies, there were icemen, the most popular of which is probably Otzi. Otzi was found in between Austria and Italy in 1991. He's believed to be around 5,300 years old. Now, modern science has discovered that Otzi has living relatives and had a diet of mostly plants and animals. Food remains found in his stomach suggest that he ate mostly plants and goats. He's one of the best preserved fossils around. And although he's not a mummy, Otzi allows us to get a glimpse of what early humans were like. Mount Vesuvius erupted in 79 AD, completely destroying the city of Pompeii. When the ash settled, the city was covered and abandoned and never rebuilt. But after hundreds of years, Pompeii was rediscovered and was excavated. The ash had almost perfectly preserved the city and its bodies. When archaeologists found specimens under the ash, they poured plaster to create a mold. This mold would show us what the people looked like before they died. When any living organism dies, bacteria begins to break down the compounds that make the organism. Fossilization is a process that keeps bacteria from decomposing the body by covering it in tar, permafrost, or volcanic ash, and slowing down the decomposition process. Mummification has come a long way since early times. However, the process is virtually still the same. Mummies started in ancient Egypt. These mummies were Egyptians who could afford the expenses of preserving their bodies for the afterlife. The Egyptians didn't want their bodies to be thrown away without any meaning. They believed in preserving their bodies by going about different processes. Now, for the process of becoming a mummy, first the body is washed and purified. All the organs are removed. Only the heart was left. The body is then filled with stuffing. And it was also dried by covering it with a substance called natron. This substance absorbed all the moisture from the body. And after 40 to 50 days, the stuffing was removed and replaced with linen or sawdust. The body was wrapped in strands of linen, covered in a sheet called a shroud, and then placed in a stone coffin called a sarcophagus. Now, the Chinchorro people went about it a little differently. These people inhabited the coast of the Atacama Desert in northern Chile and southern Peru between the years 7000 and 3500 BC. They went about two different burial methods. The black mummy technique, as seen in this picture, involved removing the organs, cleaning and reinforcing the skeleton before creating a clay mold of the body. Once the body was sculpted, the skin was replaced and painted over in a shiny black pigment. The face was covered with a clay mask painted in the same way. Now, this black color is primarily indicative of the presence of manganese, with elements such as silicone, calcium, aluminum, and sodium also present. Now, after the black mummy technique, the red mummy technique was used. And this technique differs from that of the black mummies in that each cavity of the body and head were emptied and then filled with a variety of materials, such as plant fiber, clay, and feathers, among others. Afterwards, the body was covered with red paint. A wig with long black hair was placed on the head of the deceased and kept in place with a black-colored cap. The face was covered with a black mask. In regard to this red color, scientific analysis indicates the presence of mostly iron. In certain cases, other elements such as silicone, aluminum, potassium, magnesium, sulfur, and calcium can also be observed. Now, unlike other mummification traditions around the globe, the Chinchorro mummified adults, infants, newborns, and even fetuses. In practicing mummification, or as they called it, the materialization of death, these coastal hunter-gatherers employed complex techniques to prepare the body and used a wide variety of materials. The Chinchero mummies were first identified by Max Eulie, the German archaeologist, in 1917. The chemical formulas found in the mummies are complex compositions based on quartz, albite, sanidine, and muscovite, all of these occurring naturally on the banks of rivers in the region. Now, the properties of the outer layers. In the black mummies, these coatings are composed of a clay material which consists of calcite, kaolinite, calcium sulfate, and a compound rich in manganese, including cryptomeline and manganite. In the red mummies, arsenic was also found, an element which naturally occurs in watercourses in the region. Large amounts of iron have also been found in the form of hematite, which is usually in conjunction with halite or rock salt, and gypsum. Now, for modern embalming, in the U.S. during the 18th to mid-19th century, the only preservation practice used for the deceased was placing the bodies on ice. Around the 1860s, Dr. Thomas Holmes invented chemical processes to preserve the bodies of the recently dead. Union Army surgeons used embalming out in the field to allow families to view their loved ones. Today, embalming is a common practice throughout the United States, Canada, and Australia. For embalming, the body is placed on a table, bathed and cleaned, much like the mummies. But embalming fluid is injected into the arteries via a tube connected to an embalming machine. A gentle massage is performed to help with discoloration and stiffness in the face and hands. The blood is then removed from the venous system. The vessels are tied off and the incisions sutured closed. The internal body cavity is treated by removing liquids and gases and adding the preservative embalming fluid mentioned in step 2. The body is then washed and dressed, and cosmetics are applied to restore appearance. The fluids used inside the body works as a preservative by making the deceased an unsuitable host for bacteria and other organisms. Some common ingredients are formaldehyde, glutaraldehyde, methanol, and lanolin. The amount of fluid required varies. On average, 1 gallon of embalming solution is needed for every 50 pounds of body weight. There are 8 groups of embalming chemicals: preservatives, germicides, anticoagulants, perfuming agents, surfactants, dyes, modifying agents, and other accessory chemicals. Now, there are pros and cons to this. Disinfecting the body removes the threat of exposing the general public from bacteria. That's obviously good. It allows also families to view the bodies of their deceased before the final burial. But there are some drawbacks. Embalming can be combined with PCP to have an hallucinogenic effect. The US EPA lists formaldehyde as a probable carcinogen. And also in the past, arsenic was placed in embalming fluid and would cause soil and groundwater to be contaminated. But we don't have to worry about that now. Anyway, that's the history of embalming. Before that, mummies, and before that, Ice Age fossils. So we hope you enjoyed it. Have a great day.